Hello.
Was that you, Dr. Hanson?
Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And we are going to begin this evening with a presentation to the previous Student Council representative, Jade. Jade, if you can meet me over there. So after a long dry spell of not being able to have students attend board meetings for safety reasons, it has been absolutely wonderful having our student council representative back. And I would just like to say how very grateful we as the whole board are to be able to have that student voice at our meetings and to hear about all the important things that our student council is doing. And so on behalf of the Board of Education, I have this plaque for Jade commemorating her year with us.
Oh, is it still? I would just like to say that this year has, or this past last year has been so crazy. One of the best years I could have had in high school. I'm so grateful that I had an opportunity to be student council president and be able to set up all those events such as homecoming, the food drive, the Christmas party, things that actually make a difference within our community and, things that actually could make an impact. And, it makes my high school very memorable. So in a way, I've always looked back and thank all those around me that I ever got to work with, got to meet. I met so many new people, made so many new friends, and I just feel like this is definitely something I would pass on to, future people I meet or even my siblings at home too. So yeah.
And with that, I'm going to hand over our meeting to Andrew Manna, who's going to conduct the election for us. I also would like to make a nomination.
I will take your nomination in 1 second. Is there a second for Miss Williams? By Miss Triplett. Yes, ma'am. On your motion, Miss Burke?
Sorry about that, we couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
I would like to nominate Julie French, please.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Dorsey and a second by Miss Williams. We have a motion by Miss Burke for Miss French. And is there a second on Miss Burke's motion? Okay, Ms. Amos seconds the motion by Ms. Burke. So you have a nomination for president, and just to clarify, you have a motion by Mr. Dorsey that's been seconded for Ms. Williams. You have a motion by Ms. Burke with a second by Ms. Amos for Ms. French. I will try to help you facilitate through those two motions, and I think the easiest way to do that is I will go down through and you're going to give your response. I'll go by alphabetical order. So with our two, making sure you're clarified, your nomination is either for Ms. French as president or Ms. Williams as president. And I'll start with Ms. Amos. What is your vote?
Ms. French.
Ms. French. Okay, Ms. Burke.
Ms. French.
Mr. Dorsey. Ms. Williams. Ms. French.
Mrs. French.
Mrs. French. Yes, got it. Mr. Oriana.
Ms. Williams.
Ms. Williams. Ms. Triplett.
Ms. Williams.
And Ms. Williams.
Ms. Williams.
Ms. Williams, okay. The best I can tell, if I kept track here, we have 4 votes for Ms. Williams and 3 votes for Ms. French. So Ms. Williams would be the new president.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
As we move on to vice president, is there a nomination for vice president?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Amos as vice president.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Dorsey for Ms. Amos as vice president. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Dorsey, second by Ms. French. To clarify, are there any other nominations? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of Ms. Amos as vice president, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Let me do that one more time. To clarify, as vice president, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Got it. That carries unanimously. Ms. Amos as vice president, congratulations. Nomination for secretary. I would take a nomination for secretary.
I nominate LaShawna Triplett.
Motion by Ms. Williams for Ms. Triplett as secretary. Is there a second?
I will second.
Ms. Amos. So nomination by Ms. Williams for Ms. Triplett and a second by Ms. Amos. Any other nominations? All right. All those in favor as Ms. Triplett for secretary, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Congratulations. Ms. Williams, at this point, I traditionally will turn it back over to the new president unless you need any help with the next motions.
Turn my mic on. Thank you all so much. I would like to thank all my fellow board members for electing me as president. I thank you very much. On the agenda, we're going to move on to appointments. I have to pull this mask down because my glasses are fogging up. We're going to move on to appointments. The first appointment would be for the legislative liaison, and I would like to appoint Julie French. The next appointment of ISBA policy liaison, I would like to appoint Rachel Burke. And for the last appointment of WAEF Education Foundation, I would like to nominate LaShawna Triplett.
I need to interrupt for a moment. We need to make a motion to allow the president to assign these roles first.
Okay.
So
She said,
it's an action.
I'll try to help. you could, if you characterize it as a slate of appointments, do that all as one. Am I understanding that all of those positions that you just listed, legislative liaison, ISBA policy representative, you have those names as sort of a slate? So just, my recommendation is just take that as a motion by Ms. Williams for the slate of those positions. And then you need now a second.
I'll second.
So motion by Ms. Williams and a second by Ms. Amos for the slate of those positions.
Is there any discussion? Okay, can we take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're ready to go on to establish meeting dates, times, and places. All school board meetings will begin at 7:00 p.m. in the boardroom at the Warren Education and Community Center, located here at 975 North Post Road, or streamed online. School board agendas and minutes can be viewed on Board Docs website through the MSD Warren Township website. And the agenda has all of the dates listed for 2022. Can I have a
I'll make the motion to accept the dates.
It has been moved and second that we accept these dates for 2022. Can we have a vote? All in favor say yes.
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 Is there any opposed? Okay, it has been approved. Okay, next will be our conflict of interest. The state of Indiana requires that all elected officials fill out a conflict of interest form. It is for any organization that you are a dependent or your spouse have a pecuniary interest that may also come into contact with the district. It is a state law requirement, not something we require as a district. In the state of Indiana, in order to not have a conflict of interest, you must declare the conflict of interest ahead of time. So please fill these out today and give them to Kim before leaving. Next, we want to move on to establish yearly stipend and per diem. Board members currently receive a stipend of $2,000 per year for their service. In addition, they may receive a meeting per diem of $112 for regular board meetings and $62 for special meetings, executive meetings, meetings of committees established by the board, or attendance at national or state school board events. In addition, board members attending national or state school board events, including an overnight stay, will receive a per diem meal expense payment of $35 per day in lieu of meal reimbursement. Can I have a motion?
A second.
Sorry.
Can I have a second?
Howard seconded.
I second.
All right, it has been moved in second that we accept this. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It has been approved. Now we will have our treasurer and deputy treasurer report from Dr. Hanson.
Good evening, Board. President Williams, Vice President Amos, and Secretary Triplett. I apologize for my absence this evening as we are dealing with COVID in the Hanson household. At this time, the school board must appoint a treasurer who may not be a member of the board nor the superintendent. The board also must appoint a deputy treasurer to act in the absence of the treasurer. I recommend to appoint Matthew Parkinson as the treasurer and Lisa Hedge as deputy treasurer.
Do we have a motion?
I will make the motion.
I'll second.
Terry made the motion. Who second? Okay, and Julie second. Is there any discussion? If not, we would like to call a vote. All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved. Next, we will have Dr. Hanson, the attorney of record.
At this time, board, it is my recommendation that the law firm of Church, Hiddle, and Antrim represent the district as our attorney of record.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, so Terry made the motion. Who seconded?
Rachel.
Okay, and Rachel second.
No,
Is there
Rachel
an-
made the motion. Rachel made the motion.
Rachel made the motion and Terry second. All right, I had to take my glasses out to see who was talking. Is there any discussion? Okay, we will call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it has been approved. Next, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Good evening again, board. It's been just 10 days since our last board meeting. However, in those 10 days, it's been a very busy 10 days. I've highlighted my main activities since that time. A lot has been around COVID, meeting with health departments and Community Health Network, other superintendents around the district and our organizations. Just trying to stay on top of our data, trying to stay on top of our safety protocols, and keeping our students and staff safe. We welcomed back our students January 3rd. As you know, our 512 students remain on virtual schedule for the remainder of this week. A couple of highlights or spotlights I would like to mention this evening. Our legislative forum is coming up on Saturday, January 29th. That is a Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. at 975 North Post Road in the boardroom. We have confirmation from all of our legislators, so excited to have that event back in person. I want to give a shout out to all of our school nurses and Kim Howard. As you can imagine, coming back from break and working with our students and families and staff and dealing with the COVID situation, they are doing amazing things. So I would just like to acknowledge all of them and thank them for their great work thus far. And I'd like to leave it with, we use the hashtag #WarrenWill as a way to highlight the resiliency of our school district and our community. And as I mentioned in my call today, I know it's very difficult right now for everyone, but the Warren Will is shining through, and I just appreciate everyone's resiliency and flexibility as we get through this tough stretch. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hanson, for all of your hard work, and we just miss you here being here tonight, but thank you. Now we're going to move on to board comments. We will start with Terry.
Good evening, everyone. I want to give Dr. Hanson, his cabinet, kudos. I know it's been very hard working through these last 2 weeks of getting school started and having to go virtual for a couple of days, but I know it's for the safety of our students, our teachers, and all of our district and our families. I know a lot of hard work goes out to our nurses, to our school secretaries, and to everyone who's got a hand in this and making sure our kids are safe. I just hope that we can overcome this and that COVID will someday be a thing of the past. So with that, I'll just pass it on to LaShawna.
It has been very challenging, that all of us have known, and we are fighting this uptick. I do appreciate the cabinet and Dr. Henson for your strategically not overwhelming our parents with, oh, we're out for a long amount of time, but easing it a little bit at a time. I've heard positive feedback, from that, because the families feel as though they got a little hope. We're going back. So I just thank you for all of your hard work. Just continue to do what you do, wrapping your arms around our families, sending out those notes for food, and just helping with some of those, risk factors and making them into protective factors. So just appreciative of you tonight. And thanks for allowing me to serve as secretary. Board.
Okay, we will have Howard.
All right, well, I can wake up now. Hey, hang in there, Dr. Hanson. I know it's tough. Speedy recovery on whatever you got. I don't know if it's flu, COVID, the heartburn. But and I say that in jest and also because, they're saying out there is so much stuff going on. We don't know what it is that people are getting sick from, And so that's why I say, whatever it is, speedy recovery and hope to get you back here. Congratulations to the slate. Good job. I think we're going to be moving into another level as well. Very unified, and I'm really tickled to death with where we're headed with the MSD. Good go.
Thank you.
I say congratulations as well. It's a great year when we can all come together and work as a team. So I'm going to use some of my time. First, I want to say I went to the bowling sectionals that was going on last Saturday for a little while, and it's kind of neat. I like to bowl, and I don't get to do it very often, but it was great watching the kids. You could tell they had a great time, and that's the big thing about it. It was also robotics kickoff, which was wonderful. We're starting our big season of robotics. So, but I want to also, there's not a spot on here tonight for legislative, so I just want to talk about a couple of things. If you go onto the indiana.gov/IGA website, you can see all the bills that are out there, and they just kept piling in, and there's a lot of them. There are several on school board elections. They're wanting to turn them partisan versus nonpartisan. I think we need to not be thinking about being partisan. We need to be thinking about what's in the best interest of the kids. And I think that's the way we're all headed. And they did have several school board members attend that committee meeting, and every comment they had was saying stay nonpartisan. So we'll see what happens. There was also a lot on 167. There was how many hours, Rachel? I don't know. On 167 and 1134, which are both the bills that are very similar, that has to do with the transparency and putting all the information on the website, and the 8 concepts that they're recommending that you not talk about, which there was a lot on that one. There's just several things wrapped into that one. So I would recommend it passed, 1134 passed out of committee. And so I recommend you contact your legislator regarding that one. And then, let's see what else was there. Oh, from our last meeting, Senate Bill 335 is about eliminating textbook fees. So write your legislators on that one too, please. And then there was, I think those were the main ones. I think, there's another, 1252, which, let's see if I can find it. 1252 is a Student Enrichment Act where they want to give $1,000 for remediation to the families. I would like to see that money go to the schools rather than the families. I think our schools know how to remediate our kids the best, but that one's out there, so pull it out and look at it, and it's nice and big. They're all nice and thick, so happy reading.
Dennis?
Dr. Hanson, I hope you feel better. Congratulations to
Thank you.
the new position, the members. Happy New Year for everybody. And what I like to say is I hope we can work hard this coming year like we do the last year. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rachel?
Well, I hope everyone had an excellent holiday season and got to recharge a bit, especially considering what we all came back to. I'm going to dovetail on to what Julie said, mostly because I'd already written notes on it, so sorry. So it was at least 14 hours of testimony on 167 and 1134, 7 and 7 for both. It also includes some really troubling library language that affects school libraries. And then heard today in the Senate was also Senate Bill 178, which opens up some funding in discussion of that 45%, and then also would increase what are bargainable issues by the association. So that's another one to have a good read on. I will say, having spent a lot of time downtown, it was nice. I happened to park where Alabama was staying, although they did not go on to win the game, and so I got to see all of the Alabama State troopers and fans and everything, and it was nice seeing, I mean, just from the buses I saw, what the influx of people into our city. A little worrying, some because of COVID, but good for the economy as well. So that was a nice thing to see, especially as I was walking back to my car, all of the fans that were completely made up. That was quite the sight. I wish I had grabbed more pictures, but I was trying to be polite, and I think that might have been my fault. As Julie said, robotics season has started and Science Olympiad season is continuing on. I would really like to give a shout out to building security, who at Raymond Park, at least on Saturdays, we keep pretty darn active and have to email them a lot. And so for all of the help that they do every day, keeping everyone safe and making sure that extracurriculars can meet even when they're meeting at odd times. And happy beginning of the school year. Everyone stay safe.
Thank you, Rachel. I would like to say Happy New Year to all of you. Thank all of you for coming out. I would like to say to Dr. Hanson, we hope to see you soon. And thanks for all of your hard work that you and your administrative team is doing to try to help warn students and families at this time. I know that we're going through a lot with the pandemic that's going around again, but I'm just going to say to everyone, hang in there. I want to say to our parents also and our teachers, you know, things are going to get easier. Things are going to get better. When COVID first hit us 2 years ago, you know, we also didn't see any hope, but we made it through. And just like we made it through then, we can make it through now. So I would like it for everyone to be encouraged, hang in there, things will get better. We're just gonna keep working together. Working together works. I would like to thank all of my fellow board members for your support in voting for me today. And I look forward to us having a great year and us working together as a great team. Thank you very much. Do we have any yellow cards, LaShonda?
Not at this time, Ms. President.
Thank you. Well, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. And on our consent agenda, we have approval of minutes, financial report, payroll claim, financial report, claim register and electronic payments, financial report, year-to-date summary of fund balances, human resources report, permission to accept gifts and grants from Tashana Robinson, use of school property, and at this time I would like to know if we can get a motion to approve our agenda, consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Who was that made the motion? Okay, Julie motioned and LaShonda second. Is there any discussion? Okay, it has been approved. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to have a vote. I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now it has been approved. Okay, now we're going to go to reports by Dr. Hanson.
Good evening, board. Again, let me share my screen here. You should have, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. You should have a copy of this in your folder. Similar to our previous board meetings, I've updated our COVID cases. As of today, the positivity rate in Marion County is 34.2%. That is not a typo. That is considerably higher than we've seen in the past, and we continue to watch that. The recommendation this evening is to remain implementing the COVID safety protocols that we have had in place. These are primarily for our students. Last Wednesday at our board work session, our public board work session, you did approve a couple new protocols for staff only, but I did not include those this evening because that does not impact our students. The table here just keeps an historical record of our COVID cases. I would draw your attention to last week, January 3rd through the 7th. We did have 312 cases and 924 isolations or quarantines. Obviously, that's the highest we've ever seen since the pandemic has started. One thing I did share with you last week when we made the decision to transition our 5 through 12 students to virtual or e-learning, it was primarily because of our inability to safely staff. I shared on our call today, originally those needs were at our 512. They have since grown district-wide. At the beginning of last week, coming off the break, we always track our certified and administrator absences. And let me just include that this is not just COVID absences. These are if a staff member is taking a personal day, if they are taking their vacation at that time, if they were absent for bereavement. This does include COVID, but it also includes other illnesses. So I want to make sure that you see that these numbers are not just COVID absences, but any reason that they are absent has an impact on us to operate. So the first day we came back, we had 98 absences in the pretty much at the building level. You can see that increased as we went through the week. And then we started recognizing that this is not just about our teachers and our administrators, it's really about all of our employees, including bus drivers, instructional assistants, front office staff, nurses. So when we took a look at what did our absent rate and what were our staff needs, we started monitoring that on January 6th, and you can see 189 total absences has a significant impact on our ability to do our day-to-day operations. So we made the decision to move 512 to e-learning on Friday the 7th and Monday the 10th. When we saw that those numbers on the left were continuing to increase and on the right we're stabilizing at such a high level, we made the decision to extend that into this school week. I am optimistic by looking at today's data. It hopefully is moving in the other direction. We will continue to monitor those tomorrow and Friday. And it's my intent to work with our team, communicate with the board, to communicate to our families on Sunday if we would to extend the virtual for 512, if we need to take a look at K4 moving to virtual, or if we can bring our students and staff back in person. At this point, I really don't have enough data to make that recommendation or decision. We'll continue to monitor this over the next couple of days. Be happy to answer any questions, and I also asked Ryan to be available if there were some questions.
Dr. Hanson, I have a question. What did you say the state percentage was?
The Marion County positivity rate is 34.2. Rachel, I know you love numbers just as much as I do. Do you know what the state might be?
Give me a second.
I think Marion County is higher, but I don't know for sure.
The state rate is currently 27.8%. That's all tests, positivity of unique individuals, over the past 7 days is 41.3%. So that's great.
You know, I try to stay on top of trends and kind of what others are predicting. There is some optimism that next week we will see our peak with Omicron. I think it's all dependent on, you know, areas. Unfortunately, Indiana is one of the, we have I think we're number 4 on the wrong end of the list in terms of vaccinations. So it may be with us a little bit longer than others.
Is there any other discussion? Questions? Okay, if not, we will move on to action items. But before action items, do we have any green cards?
Not at this time.
Okay. I know I have a young lady that's raising her hand in the audience, but there's a procedure that we must follow, that you have to complete a card, and then at that particular time, then we will recognize you. So hopefully at the next meeting, you will be able to complete the card, and it's usually out there in the front. And at that particular time, we will be able to acknowledge you. So please, at the next meeting, we'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you. Next, we will go into our action items with Brian Simt.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. Last month, I brought before you as discussion items the following 4 policies. They're all relatively short, and they mostly include just updated language. The first of which is policy 1220, employment of the superintendent. That includes updated just anti-nepotism language as well as non-fraternization language, and then has a key provision regarding the board and the superintendent cannot put in the superintendent's contract, they cannot put a provision for providing a bonus or incentive that is paid out of a public referendum that voters approved. Policy 3120 is employment of professional staff. That again also includes anti-nepotism language, non-fraternization, updated language, and for teachers includes updated language to move away from No Child Left Behind to ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, namely the highly qualified language and some of those kind of items. Policy 4120, employment of support staff. Again, that's consists of just updated language regarding anti-nepotism and non-fraternization. And then finally, policy 3220 is staff evaluation, and that just ensures that statewide assessment results cannot hurt a teacher's evaluation, it can only improve it, is the main piece.
We're going to vote on each policy individually and ask for LaShawna to ask for a vote. Policy 1220, can we have a motion for policy 1220, employment of the superintendent?
So moved.
Howard has motion. Can we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, Terry, second. Is there any discussion? LaShawna can call the vote.
Terry,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Miss Julie,
Yes.
Mr. Dennis,
Yes.
Miss Rachel,
Yes.
Miss Gloria.
Yes.
LaShawna is a yes.
The motion carries. For policy 3120, can we have a motion of employment of professional staff revised?
I will make the motion.
Terry made the motion. Can we have a second?
Second.
Dennis second. Okay, is there any discussion? Howard second, okay. I knew I heard a man's voice. Okay, Howard second. Howard second. Is there any discussion? We have a vote, LaShawna.
Miss Terry,
Yay.
Mr. Howard, Miss Gloria.
Yes.
I was looking at you, Miss Julie. I'm sorry, Miss Julie. Mr. Dennis,
Yes.
Miss Rachel.
Yes. I'm sorry.
LaShawna is a yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Policy 4120, employment of support staff revised. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Julie made a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Rachel, second. Is there any discussion? We're ready for a vote from LaShawna.
Miss Terry,
Yay.
Mr. Howard. Miss Julie,
Yes.
Mr. Dennis,
Yes.
Miss Rachel,
Yes.
Miss Gloria.
Yes,
LaShawna is a yes.
the motion carries. Okay, our last policy, 3220, staff evaluation revised. Can I have a motion? Howard made the motion.
I'll second it.
Rachel, second. Is there any discussion? LaShawna, we're ready for our votes.
Miss Terry,
Yay.
Mr. Howard, Miss Julie,
Yes.
Mr. Dennis,
Yes.
Miss Rachel,
Yes.
Miss Gloria.
Yes,
LaShawna is a yes.
the motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Next on our agenda is discussion items, and we don't have any discussion items tonight. So we're moving right into our closing comments. And this time, we're going to start at the opposite end with Howard and move on around.
Okay. 34% positivity rate. Please, please take care of yourselves. Please. It's out there. Quit whining about the mask usage. Quit whining about the vaccinations. Quit whining about not being able to attend spreader events. People are dying. Thank you.
I will just say ditto to all of that.
I just want to say careful.
I have to throw a little more on. There are a whole bunch of counties in Indiana. I know I should know that number, maybe 92. 11 of them are at a 2.5 on that 3-point scale. 2.5 really just exists so that they don't have to be showing up at this 3. Every other county in the state of Indiana, including obviously Marion, is at 3. It's not good. We have to absolutely take care. We have staff. I know many of us know students who are very ill as well as staff. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, do what you need to do to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Terry?
I'm just going to say ditto with everyone else. It's just really important. Just take care of yourself and if you can take care of others, do that as well. We are a community that cares, and support for others is amazing too.
Thank you, Terry. LaShawna?
I would just like to echo my fellow board members and also say, even with staying safe, we have had families and elderly that do not even go outside and are catching COVID. So just remember to say hello to your loved ones and be kind. Tomorrow is not promised to us, so let's take one day at a time and love each other. And I would just like for the brotherly love to continue throughout the board and in our community as we become overcomers of the crises that we're facing.
I would like to thank everyone for their comments. And I would like to say to our community out there, if you need any help at all, we have Moorhead Community Resource Center. Please go and seek help. You know, they will be able to help you with anything that you might need, even if it's babysitting. They might be able to find some resources for you. I don't know, I'm really reaching. But they are a great resource, and please take advantage of the food distributions. You know, we're here to help in any way that we can. So please use the resources, and like everyone has said, stay safe. We really care about you. We care about not only our parents, our students, but also our staff, our teachers, and we're just asking everyone to stay safe. And we appreciate all of you. At this time, we are going to adjourn this meeting, and I don't know whether board members need a 5-minute break? We have to wait. Okay, and we have to wait until 8 o'clock, so we have a 15-minute break. So I would like to thank all of you for coming. If you want to stay for our second meeting, thank you.
Can I call you tomorrow? Thank you. Oh, my secret. Or
I have power too.
Is our mics back? Oh, it's back on again. Okay, it is now 8 o'clock, and we're ready to move into our Board of Finance meeting. Do we have to say the pledge again? All right, great. Okay, we're ready for our Board of Finance meeting, and we will be asking Matthew Parkinson. Thank you.
Just for point of clarification, would you like me to do the reports, or did you want to do the election of officers before that?
Normally, Mr. Holt would, talk and introduce himself and then ask us to elect officers. So either way you want to do it.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. Good evening, board members. The Board of Finance is a body that's composed of the same board as the governing body for school corporations and other types of local governments. The Board of Finance is required to meet once annually at the same night as the organizational meeting, and we have 2 required reports. And so we're going to run through those reports this evening, but the first 2 orders of business before the reports are nomination of a Board of Finance president and a Board of Finance secretary.
Can I have a motion? Normally, for the Board of Finance, it's always the president, and the secretary is the secretary of the board. They are the secretary to the Board of Finance, and then the president to the Board of Finance is usually the president of the board. So can I have a motion?
And I nominate Gloria Williams to be president of the Board of Finance.
I'll second it.
It was moved by, the motion was moved by Rachel and Julie second. Is there any discussion? Okay, so the motion carries. Can we have a vote? By LaShawna.
Ms. Terry? Mr. Howard? Ms. Julie?
Aye.
Mr. Dennis?
Aye.
Ms. Rachel?
Aye.
Ms. Gloria?
Aye.
LaShawna is an aye.
Now,
It's on the computer.
okay. All right, the motion carries. Mr. Parkinson.
Okay, thank you.
I move to name LaShawna as the secretary for the Board of
I
Finance.
will second that.
All right. Rachel moved for LaShawna to be secretary of the Board of Finance. Can I have, and Terry second? Yes. So is there any discussion? Can we have a vote, LaShawna?
I think we're pulling it online. Okay.
It's on the computer.
Mr. Howard, how do you vote? Aye. Thank you. Mr. Dennis?
Aye.
Do you have a vote on your screen?
Oh,
Record it. That is 7 ayes.
Okay. It was unanimous. Approved. Okay, so Mr. Parkinson.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Williams. So this evening, we have 2 reports to cover. These are reports required by statute. The first is an annual report on the school corporation's investments, and the second will be a report on fiscal indicators. For both the investment report and the fiscal indicators report, I've prepared a report that stands aside from the PowerPoint deck. The PowerPoint is a summary of the more complete report, and so that's what I'll walk us through this evening, and I'm happy to answer questions at any time. The investment performance is in line with the board's goal to maintain financial stability. And within our strategic plan, this touches investing in people and investing in efficiencies. The investments report summary is required by Indiana Code 51377. This is an item that school corporations must report on annually. We have to report on it at the annual Board of Finance meeting. Data that I'm going to present for you this evening is on calendar year 2021. As you all know, most of the time for our finances, we think in terms of a fiscal year from July through June. Historically, we provide this report on a calendar year just because it's in line with the annual Board of Finance meeting. Our investment income for calendar year 2021 is on the screen. We earned just over $13,000 apiece for the education and the operations funds. We also earned a small amount of interest income for 2 of our construction funds for a total of $43,154. I'll note for the board, our investment interest this year is particularly low. That's a function of market interest rates right now, and in the same way that as individuals with savings accounts are paying close to zero right now. The same is true on the corporate level, and so this is the amount of interest income we were able to earn from a combination of interest-bearing checking accounts, money market accounts, and a little bit of interest on short-term treasury notes. Our responsibility is to return investment income back to the fund from which we invested it. We're permitted by statute and by board policy to mingle money from multiple funds together for investment purposes. And so you'll notice that we split our investment income from traditional checking through education and operations. And then for the 2 construction funds, we are able to tie those directly back to the individual fund from which it was invested. Our investment policy, which we're required to discuss or required to present on this evening, is based upon Indiana Code 513.9. The board policy that describes our investments is Board Policy 6144. And I think the key passage from that policy is the one I've included on the slide. It says the purpose of the investments is to maximize the returns of the corporation's excess cash balance, consistent with safety of those monies and with the desired liquidity of those investments. So our plan in 2022 is to continue conservatively investing any excess cash that we have. I will forecast for the board that interest income is likely to remain low again for 2022. We remain in a low interest rate environment, but we're certainly doing what we can. I'm happy to answer any questions about either our investment policy or our investment performance from the past year. If there are no questions, and if it works for the board, I'll move on to the second report that we have for the evening. So the second and final report required at the annual Board of Finance meeting relates to school corporation fiscal indicators. In a relative sense, this is a newer report. This is the 3rd year that we're required to present it to the Board of Finance. So again, this fits in with the board's goal of maintaining financial stability for the school corporation. And again, within our strategic plan, investing in people and investing in efficiencies. So the fiscal indicators report is required by Indiana Code 51378. This is a report specific to school corporations. So municipal governments, county governments, township governments don't have to complete this report, but school corporations do. The fiscal indicators report is based upon 6 metrics that are defined by the State Fiscal and Qualitative Indicators Committee. The committee is made up of members of several state agencies. It's the Department of Education, Department of Local Government Finance, State Board of Accounts, Management and Performance Hub, one representative from Indiana IASBO, and the Executive Director of the Distress Units Appeals Board. This is another one, just like the investment report. Data is on a calendar year basis as it's reported from the state. The reason for that is all but 2 school corporations in the state use a calendar year as opposed to a fiscal year for budgeting and financial reporting purposes. So the data, I've presented this on a calendar year basis consistent with the data provided by the state. It's not necessarily consistent with how we typically start and begin our year, but that's how the state does it. And again, this slide deck is a summary of the broader report. So I'm just going to just briefly run through each of the 6 indicators, and I'll be happy to answer questions about any of them. The first indicator identified by the Fiscal and Qualitative Indicators Committee is average daily membership. In other words, this is student enrollment here at MSD Warren Township. We have been on a slow downward trend for enrollment over the period that's measured by the fiscal indicators. Although the good news is, where this data ends in calendar year 2020, in the fall of 2021, we did see a bounce back in enrollment. And so the hope that we have is that we have hit our bottom, and we're going to see either steady or slightly increasing enrollment from here. We have, as I think everyone in the room knows, we have houses coming in around the district, which has the potential to provide student growth for the future. And so we remain optimistic about the future of our average daily membership. This is a key indicator for us because our largest revenue source, state tuition support, is based primarily on student enrollment count. And so we keep a close eye on count in advance of both the fall and the spring count dates. The second indicator identified by the committee is fund balances. And so I've presented 3 years of fund balances for our primary funds. In calendar year 2018, it was $12.5 million. We dipped a bit in calendar year 2019, and then we increased in calendar year 2020, $15.8 million. The fund balance increase was primarily driven by growth in 2 funds that year. It was the education fund, and most importantly, the operating referendum fund. And so historically, as this board will be aware, the first year that we collected a property tax levy for the operating referendum fund was calendar year 2019. In calendar year 2020, the school corporation increased the fund balance in that fund by essentially spending less than the revenue that was brought in. The third indicator is the annual deficit surplus. There are data issues with this fund that I want to, with this indicator that I want to talk through. I've presented for the board's consideration the numbers as they show up on the state's report. On the top row, or the top table, this is showing the annual deficit and surplus for all of our funds. And as you'll notice, there's just a huge variance in fund balance. The primary reason for that is in calendar year 2019, we issued the first round of construction bonds for renovation of Lowell and Phase 1 at Warren Central. Because this is considering all funds, this is going to show a large increase in our fund balance for construction in 2019, followed by naturally a large decrease in 2020 when we didn't issue construction bonds. When we look at this again next year, we're likely to see the same thing for calendar year 2021 because of our Phase 2 issuances. I've then added a second table which focuses on our primary funds, so education, operations, operating referendum, debt service, rainy day. That one too has a data issue that I'm going to talk through on the next slide, but again, I want to present it for the board's consideration. The primary issue that I'm going to speak to is expenditures. The expenditure data that the state committee used did not include transfers out. And since the transition from the general fund, capital projects, bus replacement, and transportation, to the education and operations fund, school corporations make a transfer each year, and we do as well, from the education fund to the operations fund. Because the data used for that surplus report didn't consider the transfer from education to operations as expenditures, their report showed that we had a $16 million surplus in the education fund, which we certainly didn't. We transferred a little bit over $14 million from education to operations. And so I've presented for the board on this table here the data that I would report to you if you were to ask me to do so on what our annual surplus and deficit was for calendar year 2020. We increased in the education fund by $1.4 million, operating referendum by $2.8 million, debt service by 4.7, and operations by 0.6. And the sort of proof for using this method is if we take our fund balance at the start of calendar year 2020 and our fund balance at the end of calendar year 2020, the difference between those two numbers is going to match what we show here on the screen. So in this particular case, my recommendation to the board would be to consider our numbers as opposed to the way that the state reports them.
I got a question about this.
Yes, sir.
0 rainy days.
Yeah.
So this is a deficit surplus report, which is going to compare revenues and expenditures. It's not speaking to the fund balance itself. Fund balance is about $3.5 million in the rainy day fund. In calendar year 2020, we added no money to the rainy day fund, and we also spent no money out of the rainy day fund. So on a surplus basis, it was just a flat year. We have a little bit over $3.5 million in the fund. We simply didn't add to it or spend from it in 2020.
Is it possible to list that under the rainy day so that we would know?
Yes, absolutely. One thing I'll note for the board is on the monthly report that we put together showing fund balances, it is listed on that report.
Laura. So it's 3.437 million.
The next metric identified by the State Fiscal and Qualitative Indicators Committee is fund balances as a percent of operating expenditures. And so the formula that the state is using is taking the fund balance in a set group of funds divided by annual expenditures within those funds. And the funds that the State Indicators Committee is using is the education fund, general, when we used to have the general fund, operating referendum, operations, or the former operational funds, which would be bus replacement, transportation, and capital projects, and the rainy day fund. So again, this is taking the fund balance for those funds divided by annual expenditures for those funds. We saw a growth, we saw an increase in our fund balance relative to our annual expenditures in calendar year 2020, up to 14.5%. So that's a positive for the fiscal stability of the school corporation. I'll note for the school board, specifically for the education fund, which is probably the one that we focus on the most, our fund balance in that fund was 8%. A target range that a lot of school corporations will use is having an education fund balance between 8% and 12% of annual expenditures. So we're within that range, kind of toward the bottom end of it. And my recommendation over time is that we find ways to increase our education fund balance, protect ourselves in case we do hit a rainy day. And so it's a long-term goal that I'd advocate for the school corporation. The fifth indicator identified by the committee is revenue by type, and I have commentary on the next slide, which I'll go to, but I want to make a few notes while we're here. What I'm going to show on the next slide is that our state revenue is generally consistent over time. Our local tax revenue has been generally consistent over time. Again, we saw the operating referendum revenue come in as we began to levy for that in calendar year 2019. And then this is going to go back to explaining the data from the first indicator. The revenue type listed under debt, again, refers to construction, or for calendar year 2020, it also includes temporary tax anticipation warrants. So one item that's not shown in the revenue by type table based upon the timing of this report is state tuition support. And so as the board will know, we're in a period right now where we're seeing a strong increase in state tuition support. That's a combination of two factors. That's an increased appropriation from the State General Assembly, and then that's an increase in enrollment from this past fall. And so our state tuition support is up nearly $6 million, which is certainly a positive for the school corporation. And then the last indicator identified by the state committee is operating referendum revenue as a percent of total revenue. Again, for us, we first collected this revenue in 2019. For us, we've seen the percentage increase. It's going to stabilize around 4%. We're collecting basically what we're going to in the operating referendum fund other than growth from assessed values. The story that I believe the Fiscal Indicators Committee is trying to show here is the risk to a school corporation that has an operating referendum, should that operating referendum not be renewed for one reason or another. And in our case, the risk is around 4% of our total revenues. And so finally, I summarize our overall financial position with a SWOT analysis. Overall, I believe our corporation's in strong financial shape. We have room for improvement, but I believe that we're in strong shape. And that's testament to the board over the years and to superintendents and certainly to Mr. Holt, my predecessor. In terms of strength, to me, our biggest strength has been our stability over the years. And that's especially been tested in recent years as we've undergone a lot of change just in terms of how we have to operate through a pandemic. But even before that, as we've seen, small declines in enrollment, being able to maintain strong financial stability is a real strength for the district. To me, our weakness, if we have one, is our fund balances. Like I mentioned earlier, I would advocate for us shooting for an education fund balance of 12% of annual expenditures. I think in particular, if you're a school district that has some risk of declining enrollment, you want to err on the side of having a slightly larger education fund balance. We have room to get there over time. We're not going to get there overnight, but I believe we can strategically make progress toward that goal. The biggest opportunity financially and arguably in other ways for the school district is continuing to invest in our people, continuing to invest in our facilities. I've been really proud, and a number of folks in the room have been, about the progress we were able to make on teacher compensation over the past year, compensation for support staff. We have to continue moving in that direction to make sure that we remain competitive and make sure we hang on to our strong employees. And we're doing a lot of great work right now in terms of investing in our facilities. Lowell's in great shape. Crest Creek and Pleasant Run are coming along. We're going to have good work coming up at Hawthorne and Eastridge, and we're transforming a lot of parts of the high school right now. And so I think that's something the community can be really proud of, and it's a financial strength for us as well. Finally, our biggest threat is just our enrollment. The hope is that we have stabilized, or even that we're going to begin to grow, just because of the impact it can have on our education fund funding. If we do happen to see declines in enrollment, that can obviously present a challenge for the school district. There's more detail on each of these metrics within the report. Again, the metrics are identified by the state committee. I did provide a copy of the output from the actual state report in case anybody would like to take a look at that. And I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
How is our ADM looking for the spring right now?
So we believe we're holding steady. We are going to see an increase in students who are participating in virtual education. And so students who qualify for virtual education are funded at 85% instead of 100%. So there's going to be a little bit of downward pressure on revenue from that perspective, but it doesn't appear as though we've seen a decline from fall to spring in enrollment, at least not a notable one.
Mr. Matthew, I would just like to say thank you for having a strength-based overall analysis. We use that approach in our community world, just showing the strengths and then what we can build off of. So I think it was a well put together report and gave us a lot of data to look at.
Thank you.
I'll come have a class with you for all those other technical.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have for this in terms of the mandatory reports. At this point, the board's mandatory duties in terms of electing officers and hearing reports is concluded. And so if it works for you, Ms. Williams, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank you for all of your hard work. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I would like to say thanks again to all of our board members for all of the hard work that they put in, all of our staff and administration, our superintendent. We just like to say thank you. We appreciate you. We want you to be safe going home, and we want you to stay safe and not get sick. So go through all the precautions, and we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.